A short story for you. 1998. British band known as Sugar Babes was formed. A band which consisted of 3 female singers. And to make a long story short, it was not smooth sailing for these 3 friends. One by one, the original founders of the group left the band for personal reasons, only to be replaced by new members. With time, this left us with a brand new lineup for the band, though they still kept the name of Sugar Babes. What makes this name situation more difficult is that the original 3 singers made up with their personal problems and joined once again to form the band Motia Kisha Saya Band in 2011. These leaves us with the questions: who are the Sugar Babes now? Can anyone be a Sugar Babe? Or does the name stay with the original founders? There might be no answer, as these questions test the waters of subjectivity. This is an apt example of the paradox known as the ship of Theseus. Now, what is this about? The ship of Theseus is a paradox which regards identity over time. One version, posited in a scenario in which all the parts of a ship are replaced gradually and one at a time, poses this question: is the vessel that exists after the replacements the same ship as the vessel that existed before the replacements? This example leads to my claim. The ship of Theseus paradox is a tool which we can use to explore different perspectives, truths, and interpretations. Now, this paradox can be applied to both physical objects as well as abstract ideas. A small example of a physical object capable of exploring my claim and creating this paradox would be a house. Let's say we have an old decrepit house, and let's also say that there is a family living in it, and they want to remodel the house quite a bit. A few months later, we see a brand new house standing on the ruins of the old one. For us, the house is completely different. New materials, new design. But for the family, they claim it's the same house, even though it does not look like it. Is it the same house? Why is it different for them than to us? Again, this topic might never have an answer, as it is subjective. People might have different levels of appreciations. This can come from each person's way of displaying their value, their perspective, interpretation, and truth. Let me dive in deeper as of why we might perceive the house differently. To us, the house has no meaning. We only see it as potential property or a lifeless building. We perceive it differently as we have no personal attachment to it. Therefore, we value it differently than the family who lives in it. For the family, we can only imagine what kind of personal attachments they have to the house. We have to also account for the timeless memories they might have experienced in it. In Spanish, we have a saying, and it is used to display affection for a place we might have frequented very often in our lives. And that is, if only these walls could talk, which refers to the memories we might have made in that place. Considering these things, we wouldn't know what that family's truth is. Of course, this is assuming that the concept of truth is subjective, and we'll keep it at that for the sake of simplicity throughout this video. The example of the house was an example of my claim on a physical object, though now we have to explore the abstract part of this. My example for this will be who we were and who we transform into with time. During our lifetime, our views change. What we think about ourselves also changes. Some say life is a roller coaster of emotions, and in reality, life is a roller coaster for almost every aspect in our lives. In this abstract example, I will apply my claim to the concept of identity. As previously mentioned, in our lifetime we develop opinions, personality, ambitions, and those are prone to change with every challenge or experience we encounter. In time, those changes might be radical. In that case, who is to say that we are the same person after these changes? Let me explain. Like the ship of Theseus, slowly, every piece of wood gets replaced until the ship is made brand new by new wood entirely. Who is to say that that is, or it is not, the same ship? Our views might get replaced slowly by different ones. In time, those opinions might be entirely switched. The perception of who we are, what we are, and what our objectives are, and what our truths are, might switch. If that were to happen, are we still the same person? But also that leads to the question, who or what is our real self? Can anyone ever determine that? Or are we yet falling again into the depths of constant subjectivity? According to Socrates, on the concept of identity, one's true self is not to be identified with what we own, with our social status, our reputation, or even with our body. Instead, Socrates famously maintained that our true self is our soul. But can the soul change? Who is to say which version of us is the real us? Is the only constant change? Our perspective about who we are changes, with what our self-value might also change. And with that, our truth also changes. Keeping in mind that for these examples, truth is subjective, will we ever stay as the same ship? And if not, at what point do we stop being the same ship? These questions are not going to be answered by me. That is up to your values, interpretations, truths, and perspectives. And yet again, we fall face first into subjectivity.